Hello, everyone. This is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. My guest today is Kat Kabira. Kat is an amazing woman. She is a yoga teacher in Bali, and we've been working with Kat on a series of yoga videos for women over 60. Kat's been practicing and teaching yoga for about 20 years, and she's done a lot of work with older people. So she really understands, what we're thinking about and how we're experiencing, yoga if we decide to start in our 60s. So I'm very happy to welcome you, Kat. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
A lot of women in the 60 and Me community have tried yoga. Many of us tried it when we were in our teens and 20s and enjoyed it. But then, over the time passed and we got a little stiffer and a little, busy. And but would like to get back into it. So Let's talk about, if you can, share your experiences on the benefits of yoga, for older women.
Right. There's so many benefits, and I would say just on a physical level, probably why I love yoga, let's say compared to dancing or gymnastics or doing something in the gym, or is that it's not about being a certain way when you show up. It's really a practice to come as you are. And it's really a practice where you learn to meet yourself. And what makes it so powerful is that we're working with ourselves, not just on a physical level, but on an emotional and mental level. And what's so fascinating is as we start to practice, as we start to feel, as we start to listen, and all of this listening, this feeling can be done lying down, it can be done sitting, where you start to really tune into how you start to talk to yourself. So you can start to take responsibility of are you empowering yourself? Is it loving? Is it a loving, positive attitude? I think what fascinates me the most is so much tension and pain in the body. It actually can be psychosomatic. It can be created from how we talk to ourselves and those beliefs that we're saying to ourselves over and over again.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. A lot of women in the 60s do have this negative self-talk down to a fine art.
Right,
and, we do tend to raise objections. But I think one of the priorities for women in our community is health. Just having a healthy lifestyle. So maybe you could just share a little bit about your experiences of how yoga, actually can just on a very simple level, get you on the road to a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, well, number one, flexibility. And, the most common thing that anybody says to me, no matter what age and what gender, they'll say, I'm really not that flexible. And I say, perfect, you're in the right place. And what's beautiful is that the movements are really about getting you to feel and listen to wherever the tension is. And then you use your focus and you use your breath, and then you can start to watch it soften and unwind. And that whole act of being with yourself in the tension is actually really relaxing. I think the reason why a lot of people get hooked and why I got hooked is simply because of how good I feel. Yes. It's this beautiful, before getting on the mat, you could feel all this stress and worried and anxiety. And even, what woman doesn't beat herself up over her body, right? So I think that that's something that we all can relate to. But getting on the mat, suddenly you drop into what's important, and you could start to relax more. And that it's a certain buzz. So it's a portal to both joy and feeling this relaxation that you can carry with you for the rest of the day.
So, Kat, if I understand what you're saying, I think that you're explaining that yoga gives us a healthier mindset. So when we get on the mat, as you say, and we relax and kind of deal with our stress, then we can start thinking, well, maybe I should improve my diet, or there's something else I can do to live a healthier life. Would you say that's true?
For sure. And what I love about it is that it comes from an authentic place. Because I think especially these days we're inundated with so much information. You should do this to feel better. This is bad for you. And it can feel almost stressful and almost, feeling guilty about, how can I take care of myself? And what I love about yoga is that suddenly you start to feel, this is what makes me sparkle. This is what makes me feel energized. This is what juices me up. This is what relaxes me. This is what I want. This is the kind of energy. This is how I want to feel in my body. And I'm going to do anything to keep nourishing that, so that healthy choices become, it's a motivation to self-care, as opposed to following, some list of self-care. So it comes from a much deeper place.
So you are clearly not 60 years old.
Right. Well,
and
actually, all the yoga I do has kept me this young.
That would be good to know. But no, I mean, you clearly aren't 60, and that's totally fine, because you've said before it's for people of all ages. And I mentioned at the beginning that one of the reasons I was really excited to meet you was that you've done a lot of work with older people. And so just focusing on that, maybe you could give us some examples of people who you've met in your classes who have, come in the way that you described, kind of nervous and feeling insecure. And then, or maybe even with a physical ailment, although you don't have to talk about the specific problem, and changed, how they were transformed.
I think my favorite on just a more general level is how many older people will come with these injuries and pains that they've had for years. I always say in the beginning of class, do you have any injuries? And, raising hand, knee problems, low back problems, neck problems, shoulder tension, frozen shoulder, arthritis, fibromyalgia, and stiff joints, basically. And what's amazing to me is it really is small, simple movements, not big dramatic movements. Actually, to make any change in the body, especially if there's some sort of chronic tension or injury going on, you want to work with it in a very small, simple way. Right. And my favorite thing is suddenly, because they'll say, well, I've had this for 5 years or 10 years, or I just live with it now. And suddenly after that class, well, it feels a little different. Actually, I don't really feel that pain, or, and with that consistent practice, there's definitely even a shift where that pain goes away. And that's pretty beautiful. And yeah.
No, I'm just listening to you and thinking of the things that people in the community have mentioned, because before interviewing you, I did mention we have a Facebook community of about 45,000 women, and we got, I think, 300 questions. It was quite dramatic, the interest in yoga. But some of the questions were around this, that I have had this problem for 20 years. I'm afraid. I'm afraid that if I start yoga, it's going to make it worse, or that, or I guess as you said earlier, I won't be able to do it, that I'll just fail.
Right.
So how do you deal with that issue of failure and not wanting to
just
go for it?
Yeah. And I think that, number one, I totally get it. I've actually had my own fears of getting on the mat. What is so beautiful about the heart of the yoga practice is that this asana, this yoga poses that we talk about, that's actually, when we look at yoga, is just a minute part of the entire yoga practice. And the crux of the practice is really about listening, slowing down, feeling, tuning in, becoming conscious. So it's suddenly a gift where, we take ourselves out of our busy lives. We get to stop, and come back inside and feel what's going on. And it becomes, for some reason, I keep using the word nurturing, but it becomes a nurturing experience where just by breathing into that place of pain, you're never going to hurt yourself by just breathing into an area. But it's amazing how you can start to feel what's in there, and it will start to soften physically. Usually there's some emotional stuff in there, and that can start to release as well. And I think if you keep that consciousness and that moving slowly and breathing, then that's when things start to shift. And that's actually with the magic of the practice. And, because I've been practicing for 20 years, in a way, I would never call myself an advanced practitioner, but I'm a seasoned practitioner. My practice is actually pretty subtle and small, because that's where the deep rewiring happens. And it feels so good. So actually, as a teacher, my favorite thing in the beginning of class, I'll have 30 people in the room, is tell me your injuries. Tell me what's going on. I want to know. And then I want to come over during little poses and show, if you just flex your foot that way, notice, does that change the tension?
Mm-hmm.
Does that support your knee more? If you start to spread your toes, do you feel something different? What is it like to breathe into the back of your heart or to bring shoulders down? Because in a way, what we're doing on the mat is just finding our body parts and starting to live in our body again, which is amazing.
I think that's a really good point about getting in touch with your body again. I think that a lot of people, not just women and not just over 60, in this modern world tend to get detached. But I'm also very glad that you mentioned emotion, because I remember actually once having a massage and bursting into tears in the middle of the massage. And as I realized, it wasn't even a specific emotion. It was just that sense of touching a part of your body that triggered something. And that sounds like what you're saying happens in yoga.
Yeah, it's actually quite common. And, for some people in the beginning, I know for myself, it's almost like, what? Why am I having all these emotions? Where are they coming from? And, there's a lot of different perspectives on how we store emotional tension in our body. But what I can say is that it's firsthand and also witnessing it in so many people. It's just when we start to open up these old feelings, these things we've never had time to process or digest, these things we've kind of stuffed down and shut away and didn't give ourselves permission to feel, suddenly have a place to flow. And I would say that's another gift of the practice, is that all this stuff has just been building up for years. And when do we give ourselves permission to be as we are and to drop this stuff? I mean, that's where we start to get free. That's where we start to get light. And again, in the exploration of what creates pain and tension in the body, I think that's why meditation and breathing practices are also so powerful, because it starts to get into that body, mind, mental, emotional connection that's us, we're these. Yeah.
I'm really happy that we've talked about yoga in this way, Kat. It's a really good start. And we're going to do some other interviews to talk about some other specifics. But in this case, to focus on the fact that yoga is not just about the physical, although there are positions that you can get into that help your body, and help you generally get on a healthier lifestyle. But there's the emotional and the mental strength that you've described you can get from the practice. So I'm really happy to have had you explain that to us. And I know the women will appreciate it. So, you have a website. Is it katkabira.com?
Yes.
And, it's actually a great website, and it made me want to jump on a plane to Bali immediately. Because that's, of course, where your practice is. But there's some great information there as well. And I guess before we close, is there anything that you would like to add to encourage the women in our community to give yoga a try, to see the benefits of it?
I would love to actually share the story of my first student, because it's so inspiring. She was in her 60s, and I was a completely new teacher. And she would come to class, and I noticed she wasn't really moving much. And she came to me after class one day and said, "Look, I've got this disease in my sacrum, and I can't twist, and I can't raise my arms above shoulder height, and I'm in pain everywhere. And my doctor just said he doesn't know what to do with me. Take some painkillers and stop moving." And, and I didn't really, I obviously couldn't prescribe anything, but I did know. I said, "Well, come," because she's like, "I love just showing up. The community feels great." And I said, "Well, keep showing up and do what you can. If you're breathing and listening to yourself, you're not going to harm yourself." And it was great, because I kind of forgot about it. And I just looked over at her 2 months later, and she's just there raising her arms up over her head, and she's twisting. And I came up to her after class, and I said, "What happened?" And she said, "Well, I did what you said. I just breathed and listened to my body, and all of a sudden I could find that I could make more movements." And it was pretty remarkable. And as a fast forward, 4 to 6 months later, I got her, she wanted to do a headstand, and we did a headstand, and she's been, staying with her practice ever since. So I just, because that could be a classic case of, someone says, "Well, you're in so much pain, you can't move." And she had very limited movement. And, look at just by listening and breathing and focusing what happens.
That is very inspiring. And I'm sure that there's lots of people nodding yeah, that's me. I feel afraid to give it a shot, and I know it could help me. So, but anyway, thanks for sharing that. That's a great story. Kat, you're amazing. I'm really glad to have shared this few minutes with you, and thank you for your inspiration. And we'll talk again soon. Thanks again,
You're
Kat.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.